Cable Bahamas has always been considered the innovator.
People can have confidence in Cable Bahamas as a mobile operator because of our past history. We've proven to the Bahamian community that we are in fact able to manage additional services as a telecommunications company.
Customers expect the best from Cable Bahamas.
The technology that we bring is revolutionary technology because we know that the Bahamian public, they deserve it, and Cable Bahamas is here to bring it to them.
We are ready. Turn us on.
The State Minister for Legal Affairs defends government's immigration policy in Washington, D.C. The opposition calls for a probe into the agriculture minister's actions. A 27-year-old man murdered on Soldier Road, plus colors take over Central Bank. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Juanique Tude, and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, following allegations of human rights violations, Minister of State for Legal Affairs Damian Gomez defended government's immigration policy today during a hearing held at the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Today's hearings follow the organization's request for government to implement precautionary measures to ensure the life and physical integrity of migrants at the Carmichael Road Detention Center. Kyle Joaquin reports.
It creates impediments to travel abroad, even to Bahamian citizens. It provides for the establishment of a detention center outside the laws governing correctional facilities under the Act. It now creates an offense of harboring an illegal person. It subjects an offender to imprisonment for 10 years for providing housing, board, or shelter of any kind to an illegal person.
And those were just some of the many concerns human rights activists and Queen's Counsel Fred Smith presented at a special hearing held by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. The hearing was held to investigate whether government's new immigration policies have led to any human rights violations. Smith, who has been one of the most vocal critics of the new immigration policies, took his complaints all the way to Washington, D.C. today for that meeting. According to Smith, the Bahamas has a good constitution. However, he said it is being disrespected by these new policies. Immigration exercises, which have often been called raids or roundups, according to Smith, have led to physical and emotional abuse as homes are ransacked and invaded at times by heavily armed officers, whom he described as being dressed in battle fatigues, striking fear in Haitian communities.
Those targeted often and regularly have their property damaged or destroyed. Homes are left unsecured and vulnerable to looting. And when the occupants are detained, violence is often and increasingly meted out to those who resist. Women and children are particularly vulnerable. In this initial series of raids, several small children discovered at home in the absence of their parents were taken into custody and held in the general population at the detention center without any special supervision.
According to Smith, it took days for some children to be returned to their parents. Now, this is the second time a cabinet minister had to explain one of the government's immigration policies to an international body. Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell, toward the end of last year, did the same to the OAS. Not being left out, though, was the government's newest immigration policy that will require all school children come September to have a student permit. That, he said, violates their right to an education. The Queen's Counsel was backed by two others who shared their disapproval of the new policies. One of them even went as far as to say some human rights activists in the Bahamas are threatened.
Finally, human rights defenders in the Bahamas are confronting a hostile environment that put their security and work at risk. Members of our delegation have been threatened for expressing their opinion against the recent changes in migration policies. Also, high-level government officials have made expressions against them, minimizing their work and even depicting it as alarmist and inflammatory.
There are also numerous reports of sexual assault. Late last year, a senior immigration officer was accused of taking a detainee out of the center to his home and raping her repeatedly. In 2013, another officer was accused of raping a Cuban woman in the center. Members of the community are also afraid that their children will not be able to go to school because they will be denied access if their parents have irregular immigration status. This is a violation of the children's right to an education.
Also sitting on the side of the petitioners were human rights activist Paco Nunez and talk show host Luby Georges. Smith continued saying since the implementation of the new policies, members of the Haitian community are in fear of those who are supposed to protect them. State Minister for Legal Affairs Damien Gomez was in Washington representing the government. According to Gomez, the main reason for his appearance was to defend the reputation and image of the Bahamas. The State Minister for Legal Affairs addressed several of the concerns, particularly that of threats being made.
It is part of my duty to ensure that any breach of the criminal law is visited with a response from the state. Should members of the petitioners feel that their lives or their health has been in any way endangered and they wish to make a complaint, they are free to do so, and we will enforce the laws of the Bahamas in the ordinary course of things. We protect human rights. We enforce our criminal laws.
Gomez said while the government condemns the allegations of the petitioners, it embraces them in Christian love. But he said the defamation of the country's name will not go without a response.
It is my solemn duty to protect the name and reputation of our people. That really is the sole purpose of my attendance here today. Let not my good manners detract from the depth of outrage collectively felt by the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas at the defamation of our country.
Gomez, also a Queen's counsel, said the petitioners failed to identify a single victim of human rights abuse. During the question and answer segment, the commission led by President Rosemarie Antoine requested clarification on certain points like statistics on detainees. She asked that the state, led by Gomez, submit in writing answers to those questions. Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In other news, Michael MP V. Alfred Gray has denied allegations that he called, ordered, or induced a Family Island administrator under his ministerial control to release a convicted prisoner after he was sentenced in Mayaguana. Free National Movement Chairman Michael Pintard said in a statement this afternoon he understands Gray may have played a role in the man's release after he was allegedly convicted and sentenced to 3 months. However, Gray told NB12 he did not interfere and only heard about the matter after it was finished.
I don't make decisions for anybody, the magistrate, administrators. I don't make decisions. They make their decisions. I understand that an appeal was filed by the convicted person. Once an appeal is filed, the magistrate has an option to grant bail or not to grant bail until the appeal is heard. And that's what I told the administrator, and he exercised his discretion to grant bail once the appeal was filed. The conviction for casing or something, some minor matter, it's not the Supreme Court, it's not the Court of Appeal, and that's exactly what I am told he did. I had nothing to do with it. By the time I heard about it, the matter was finished.
Gray says the man was convicted for obscene language on Thursday and released after an appeal was filed. He says he understands the officer who was allegedly cursed by the man was the prosecuting officer on the case. The Michael MP says that's not fair, asserting you can't be judge and jury. However, he stressed he never ordered or induced the magistrate to do anything.
I did not interfere. I have an obligation to know what's going on in my constituency. And the fact that I know what was going on doesn't make a difference to me one way or the other. I have a right to know. And wherever I see abuse, I disconnect myself from it. And I think there is no way I will accept saying the offender should ever be prosecuting his own case. That's not acceptable. I don't care who it is.
Meantime, Mayaguana Administrator Zephaniah Newbold has said, I'm not prepared at this time to make any comment. That does not mean I'm not denying anything or whatever. Further down the road, there may be a comment. The FNM has called for an immediate and impartial investigation into this matter, asserting that at a time when violent crime is at epidemic levels, it would be tragic if a senior government official were to interfere or be perceived as having interfered with the proper dispensing of justice. However, Gray says it seems to him as if the FNM is trying to get involved.
The magistrate's court is not a court where bail is not granted once it's appeal, as long as it's not violent or with guns and all of that sort of thing where bail is not granted. So I don't want the FNM. They are getting involved in it seems. They are getting involved in decision of the magistrate to grant bail. That's what it seems to me. The FNM needs to kind of worry about how they're going to make some impact in the governance of this country and try to find leadership. That's what they need, leadership. And until they get that right, they're not worthy of comment.
A 27-year-old man was shot and killed off Soldier Road this morning, bringing the national murder count up to 32 for the year. Police believe the victim was gunned down while on his way to work. Bloodstains and bullet holes tell the tale of another life lost to gun violence. Police say a 27-year-old man was gunned down in front of a Soldier Road shopping center shortly after 6 a.m. Dr. Kevin King says he was inside his store NHC Nutrition preparing to open up for the day when he heard banging on his shutters. He says he went outside to investigate and found the victim lying face down in a pool of blood on his doorstep.
I just saw a pool of blood and I called and told him I have a male down on the floor in front of my clinic in a pool of blood. And then when I went back to check who he was, then I saw gunshot wounds and I realized it was a homicide. He was deceased. And I went back and called them again and told them, yeah, this is more serious than that. We need.
Superintendent Bernard Bonamy from the Central Detective Unit says police raced to the scene after getting the call at 6:05 a.m.
We don't have much information now, only that he was walking. He lived in the area, he was walking, and apparently someone walked up to him and fired multiple shots at him. He was wearing short pants, a t-shirt, and he had a knapsack on him. It appears as though he was maybe heading to work or waiting for someone to come and collect him.
We understand the victim is Gerard Butterfield. As crying relatives consoled each other behind crime scene tape, police concealed the man's body and blood-splattered walls with a blue tarp. Family members had to comfort the victim's uncle, who was overcome with grief. Dr. King, who says he has never seen anything like this since he moved his business to Soldier Road in 2003, says he knew Butterfield well and he passed his store every morning on his way to work.
It's sad. I knew the young man, well-mannered young man, respect his elders, never passes without saying good morning. He passes this way every morning going to work. It's really sad.
This latest killing comes 2 days after a man died following a double shooting in the Carmichael Road area. 32 people have been murdered in the Bahamas so far this year. Bonamy says police are determined to bring closure to this matter.
We will speak to the family members and the nearby neighbors to see if they can assist us with our latest investigation. We have no motive at this time.
In other news, Minister of State for Finance Michael Halkitis is calling on the United States to highlight what it's doing to stop gun smuggling from that country into the Bahamas. His comments come days after the U.S. State Department's 2015 International Narcotics Control Strategy Report, which noted the Bahamas must continue to crack down on drug smuggling and money laundering. Dana Smith tells us more.
2014 was a record year for marijuana seizure, which may be a possible indicator that marijuana cultivation in the Bahamas is on the rise. This, according to the U.S. State Department's International Narcotics Control Strategy Report, which noted the Bahamas remains a transit point for illegal drugs bound for the U.S. and other markets. But drug trafficking through the Bahamas is only one part of the problem, according to State Finance Minister Michael Halkitis, who said yesterday focus should also be placed on gun smuggling from the U.S. into the Bahamas and what the U.S. government is doing to assist on that front.
In the narcotics report, I did not see any discussion or much discussion about the traffic of guns from the United States into the Bahamas. And perhaps, next year in the report we can have a discussion on that. And as we know, the drugs go in one direction and the guns come in this direction. And so while we're working hard to help to stem the flow of drugs, we'd like equally to see some discussion in these reports on what the U.S. is doing and new initiatives that they're doing and money that they're spending to help to stem the flow of guns in this direction.
The State Department also raised concerns about money laundering. It said drug traffickers and other criminal organizations take advantage of the large number of international businesses and offshore banks registered in the Bahamas to launder significant sums of money. It said money laundering trends include the purchase of real estate, large vehicles, boats, and jewelry, as well as the processing of money through a complex web of legitimate businesses and international business companies in the offshore financial sector. It added, while the Bahamas has the requisite legal framework to combat money laundering, the number of prosecutions and convictions is low given the scale of the country's financial sector. Halkitis said government recognizes the reputation of the financial services jurisdiction is paramount to its growth, and to that effect, government continues to improve its laws. He added, however, he is satisfied with government's current enforcement regime, and the low number of convictions actually speaks to how good it really is.
The fact that we do not have any convictions, we think it's a reflection on the robustness of that regime. Of course, we will continue to revise, review, where necessary, revise our laws to ensure that we maintain our reputation as a sound financial jurisdiction.
Halkitis added government is spending significant amounts of money to combat trafficking, and the increased number of marijuana seizures last year speaks to its effectiveness. He also took note of government's Swift Justice initiative and praised the U.S. State Department report for highlighting the positive.
Bahamas, I was happy to see they take note of the fact that, for example, when it comes to prosecutions, the Swift Justice initiative has seen the time from arraignment to trial go from 900 days before 2012 to 400 odd days in 2013 to 230 odd days in 2014, and we're hoping to get even more improvements with that as the new courts come on stream. And so the report, while acknowledging that this is a transshipment route, did go on to acknowledge some of the positive cooperation that we have between the United States and the Bahamas.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
When NB12 returns, major cruise lines weigh in on U.S.-Cuba relations. Find out more after this break.